boxing match, I think. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to lose.
Well, considering the strength of his shake, I can tell you right away you're going to lose.
That's why I'm a bit far away. No, seriously, we do work with GSMA as math and with Henry. And we found a very good relationship. And on top of that, we found a great leadership in that case. GSMA is really leading and orchestrating what we're going to hear next about the open gateways, the telco APIs. This is great work. We're very, very happy to all the work the GSMA is doing. So we're very happy to leave the keys for the next session and so on to Henry and the team, but also a big thank you from our side. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dario. And just say, this is not a Facebook X wrestling or taekwondo match at all. And from the GSMA's perspective and MES perspective, I'm very keen not to do duplication in the industry. And I align with NGMM, I align with TIP, I align with MEF as much as possible. They align with us. So it's a two-way conversation. And when you have a conversation with each other, you actually realize that we have the same resources, all sometimes working on the same initiatives, so we stop that as much as possible, because the ecosystem's resources is the most precious resource we have, and they contribute to the activities that we do in our activities. And as long as we can align the messages and move the industry forward, I think we're all happy. So thank you very much for this opportunity, Dario.
Thank you. Now,
the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Well, let's get on with it. I've actually got a timer, so we can try and keep to track on this. So I'm going to, no, don't start that for 2 minutes, Henry. Start that for 25 minutes, and then we can make sure that we keep on line in what we're doing. I'm going to bring up our panelists for our discussion today, which is going to be around NaaS, the exposure of network capabilities for APIs, and in particular from the GSMA, some work that we've been doing around Open Gateway, which is how we've brought some of the industry bodies together. So Camara, which has been led by Deutsche Telecom, the TM Forum in what they do, and the GSMA and the way that we bring wholesale agreements and templates together. How does all this come together? What does it mean? And what will it mean for a wholesale business in the future? So with further ado, let me introduce first Viktorija Radman from Infobip. Please give her a warm welcome. Claire Chauvin from Orange. Please give her a warm welcome. Noel Wirzius from Deutsche Telecom. Where's Noel? He was here. And Gautam Harezi from Secura. So I'm going to start to ask you questions. I'm not going to be as cruel as Isabel, or should I be? Yeah, can I bring it through? Just my hot topics at the moment. So the Open Gateway initiative by the GSMA was probably started in earnest at the beginning of this year. It's probably around about 9 months old. We currently have 39 operator MOU signature. They're group operators. They represent 228 networks around the world, of which that sort of covers 64% of mobile connections that we see. There are currently 19 APIs launched through Camara at this point in time that are commercially available to use. We're seeing probably about 25, 26 by the end of the year. And the GSMA has been working with 15 different markets around the world to align the APIs so each of the operators in that local market have commercially launched the same API. So a developer can actually get the same API from all operators and hopefully standardized as well to the Camara-based technical specifications. Infobip have been quite critical in that, in producing an aggregation point. Certainly in Brazil, which we launched last week with TIM, Claro, and Vivo, which is a phenomenal step. And the previous month before, we had Sri Lanka, led by Axiata launching. So hopefully by the time we get to Mobile World Congress, we'll be between 8 to 15 markets. So this is happening really quickly. And why is it happening really quickly? is because we're using some IT and T capabilities in software defined standards or APIs. So let's get more of an insight. Claire, from Orange's perspective, what is NaaS to your business and how do you see APIs bringing new monetization to Orange?
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, well, I think we have at the moment a big curve of investment, you know, in 5G. This is 5G SA coming in the next years. This is a huge step for operators, and this is the moment for us to capitalize on what those technologies will bring. It will bring cloudification, it will bring self-service, it will bring on-demand possibilities. And this is where we need APIs, because it will help us to open up all the features, all the possibilities, the capabilities that we have in networks to very complete set, and maybe we have not imagined everything, a complete set of developers and product developers that will be able to rely on this. And what it brings, of course, is something that is easy to understand, readable. We are very tech people in network operators, and we know that we are very tech people, and there is a gap to understand the digital world, developers. So we really need this type of, you know, this stage in the middle, opening APIs, making it as simple as possible, and making sure that we can capitalize on everything we are deploying inside our networks for our internal needs first, but to mutualize and promote the business on this one.
Fantastic. And Viktorija, when you actually hear that operators are providing the standardization and these APIs, how do you see from Infobip's point of view, how do you think you're going to be able to monetize these APIs?
First of all, having standardization is something very wow now, to be honest, because we're already in this space of APIs for years. And usually when you're approaching any country, you have 3 or 4 operators there. And usually for the same use case, they have different APIs that they're exposing. So Infobip roles till now was really to standardize those API, to have single one to the real world, to the market. And if really the operators will follow one standard, which we now call Camara, and very hot topic, and bringing us a lot of benefits that will make our job easier and much more, let's say, productive in a ways of time, in a ways of what we are doing, how we are talking with operators, in ways how to present it to the market and to clients that are really at the end consuming those APIs.
Fantastic. Noel, Deutsche Telecom. Deutsche Telecom was the founder and creator, if may I say, of Camara. Give us a bit of insights to Camara, and how do you think Deutsche Telekom is going to use the APIs out of Camara to actually get a little bit more monetization that we're talking about?
Yeah, so we started with Camara, I guess, 2 years ago, we've launched it at MWC. And the point why we need Camara is, so we talked with companies like Infobip, like Google, and all the other aggregators and hyperscalers in the world. And they said, okay, if you have an API, we don't want to publish it for you. So because you are just, even with Deutsche Telekom, you have a small footprint, so it doesn't make sense. So, or if you're thinking about an operating system, so why should they integrate an API for just 20 million SIM cards for the whole world, which is using, billions of people are using this API, this operation system. So then we talk with a lot of other telcos, and then we coming to this point where we launched Camara. So one standard, so every telco is talking the same API, so it's much easier for aggregators to implement them. In the end, we need the aggregators to have the split between the networks, so the request is coming in, moving it over to the one or to the other side, to the network. And yeah, what we're doing there, so it's really like, the goal is to have the APIs in the network, not only just in Deutsche Telekom, so in our whole footprint, also in T-Mobile US network, in all the other networks we're owning. So it's really like pushing forward, pushing the network to, that a company like Infobip can say, okay, this is available at Deutsche Telekom network, and it's the whole footprint. And this is what we're looking forward. So, and also pushing the innovation and pushing the customer needs a little bit more into Camara and into the whole telco world. So taking a look at 3GPP, the old-fashioned one. So like, so there was the words customer, I call it developer experience. So we need now to have an external developer experience, and this is Camara really, really good for.
Thank you. Thank you. Gautam, you have been through many initiatives around APIs, WAC, One API, Mobile Connect. just to name 3 GSMA, probably somewhat successful sort of initiatives that have been going forward. How do you think this initiative now, utilizing Kamara-based APIs, is going to benefit the likes of Secura? And where do you think that your monetization comes from?
Thanks, Henry. First of all, I'll highlight there is a difference and a positive difference from the one API, then JIL, Joint Innovation Lab in 2010, I believe 2008, then WAC in 2010, then Mobile Connect in 2014. I think the industry has learned that it's not just enough to standardize on the southbound APIs, but go to the northbound. And that's a very positive difference that we see in Kamara. The way we see from Secura how we can actually bring in the value is bring in a top-down approach. Because even if it's a northbound API, it's a bottom-up approach, right? We are trying to standardize, assuming that this is how it will be consumed. But there is a top-down approach as well, which is where the API industry is moving in. So for example, in Kamara, we are defining how the API should look like, right? But how the API should be consumed, how, let's say, whoever, the hyperscalers and anyone else, whoever will be using, how they will be consuming it. That top-down approach, that's what we can actually bring in. For example, in the API industry, there is a lot of discussion happening right now on orchestration. Because let's say if there is a bank which is using, in Secura ID, we mostly deal with the identity API. So, that's close to my heart. So, for example, we have SIM swap API, we have number verify, we have OTP APIs as part of Kamara and Open Gateway. The banks want all of them, but they don't want to call 3 different APIs. So in that case, that's where we come in. We create that orchestration layer and add value on top. And at the same time, the API are 2 things actually. This is what we need to learn as an industry, and this is where we can actually add value. API is not just a standard, API is a technology as well. Technology will always move faster than the standard. Then what do? I still remember academic discussions during the WAC days, Wholesale Application Community. Do we use SOAP or do we use REST, right? And then we settled on REST. So now we are using RESTful APIs. The API technology is moving on. API technology, if you see the hyperscalers, they are talking about bring your own API. And they are talking about GraphQL. So there is one API. There is no SIM swap API or anything else, right? So the technology will move on. This is where we can actually, help bridging the speed or the impedance difference between the moving of the technology and the standard.
That's brilliant. And if we just look at it as an industry, we're about 1.1 trillion in the mobile industry, and we're only growing at single digit. In fact, it's quite a stagnant market, not just mobile, but telecommunications. If we look at the cloud infrastructure market, and this is what we're talking about, the glue, NaaS is the glue between telecommunications and the cloud infrastructure. If we look at that market, it's about 2.6, 2.8 trillion. That's store, compute, systems integration work. By 2030, that's going to double to about 5 trillion, just because of the digital economy that we're living in. It's going to double. That is a value pool you want to play in, because that is now more wholesale traffic that we can actually start to monetize internally within the telco. We can take part of that value. And the question is, how much of that value can we actually seize? But Noel, how do you think that we're going to go to market, and how do you think we're going to start to capture that value so all the wholesale players in the room are going to get excited about this?
So to be open, wholesale is a big point in this move, because if we take a look at developers, where they're sitting, most of them sitting on a Microsoft Azure, on a Google Cloud and AWS, they're using Infobip, they're using Vonage, they're using other aggregators. So why should we as a telco bring up our own marketplaces or something like this? Because then the developers need first to move to, out of their environment to us, to integrate with us. But we can also go the way to like Microsoft Azure to bring APIs there. They can use them in their normal environment. Maybe they can directly book them in their cloud provider infrastructure and so on, and can directly use them. So they don't need to learn like a new interface, like new contracts, like new So I don't know, I'm coming, before I work for telco, I'm coming out of a software company. And if I want to use something new with my developers, it was always like, go to the management, make a new contract, a new negotiation. But if you have a negotiation with one company already done, so it's much easier to get like a new API out of it. So, and this is what we need to go to the developers, and the developers are currently sitting at the aggregators, at the hyperscalers. And why should we push the market with no developer community behind us? Yeah, so it's an easier way for us to go with aggregators and go over wholesale. Yeah.
You mentioned a few interesting people like Azure there, but come on, Viktorija, Infobip. Are you going to conquer Azure and AWS and Google Cloud Services?
So we have, of course, our own NC+ platform and everything that Infobip is providing to our own clients already for years. And somehow it's really natural to go into this place of network APIs, to build those APIs in our existing solution and to provide simple APIs that operators build as a simple APIs connection to the solution that they are building. What is important as well, what we are doing at the moment in Brazil for the wholesaler, if you want to sell your own APIs to the market, of course you are selling for your own subscriber base. You cannot at the moment, there is no country, as far as I know, with East-West agreement between operators for the data in your network. Meaning that you still, if you want to sell it to your clients, you need to have proper market share and you need to sell it for the whole country base. And you cannot do it at the moment with your existing contract, with your existing collaboration with the other operators, even though, of course, you're talking with each other, you know which products you're bringing to the market, but still you cannot sell it for the whole market share. That is where Infobip as well is stepping in, because since we are connected to all of the players in the market, bringing the whole market and all subscribers available for particular use cases, then wholesale, we are, let's say, signing the partnership with the wholesale organization with the operators, and then they're selling this through us. A part we are selling that by our own, which I think is very important, because when we are stepping in the market and promoting some of the use cases which are not Infobip data set, it's not us who are providing those data, it's operator. So there should be the one stepping in the market, create go-to-market strategy and explaining what benefits really they are bringing and what kind of problems they can solve for the market, of course, with solutions and APIs that they are at the moment available to give. And they should be the one who are really, as well, together with us, trying to discover the market, because they should decide as well which use case to develop next. If you're developing something and you don't see the value on it at the end, it's not worth it. Yeah.
Thanks, Viktorija. And you brought in a concept there of East-West Federation. Typically, we know that as interconnection, maybe even roaming, and some people have termed this to be API roaming. Claire, how do you think, from Orange's perspective, operators will look at the moment we're all looking northbound to the developer and trying to capture that value? How do you think operators will share that value over time?
I think from the pure wholesale perspective, there are lots of opportunities in this market. I think we have gone in an era where operators are not only competitors, they are always partners, and they have to work together, and this is all about it when we're talking about standards, about exposing the same APIs and aggregating the traffic. I think we need to address, I believe 5G SA will address lots of B2B customers, and wholesale will certainly bring a lot on the table with regard to this. We need to aggregate between us telcos. We need to understand the needs of our customers, and that will be possible because we have defined here a set of very basic APIs that then will be possible to aggregate, to combine, as you said, in order to answer really the requirements of our customers and bring probably different value to different verticals as well. We'll probably have different needs, from automotive to, I don't know, whatever health or need you can imagine in the industry. And at the same time, it also brings the opportunity to open up to a much wider ecosystem of developers that are all the wide developers that you can find on different marketplaces, and we don't know what they will bring to the industry, but this is what it promises. This is what it brings, the possibility to address ourselves, our B2B customers, to address lots of other customers through the wholesale market, and address maybe more B2C market with very specific services that we have not envisaged today. So this is really the way we can imagine it, is that go-to-market will take different phases, and probably will touch different customers, will touch different types of services, but this offers the whole range of possibility. And this is true also, maybe I will take the example of Orange, because internally we have lots of affiliates in Orange, and having them all harmonized and making all their APIs available and exposing it to the external world. Maybe coming back to the example that was just stated before on Telenor links, I think it makes sense to aggregate everything from different countries and expose something that has real value for external developers or B2B consumers.
Yeah, and the wholesale agreements between the different operators are going to be really interesting in that. But you did bring in sort of the breadth that we're actually going into. At the moment, I think we're used to voice interconnection or SMS interconnection, and the challenges, there's significant challenges we've learned over 30 years of that. And we're sort of progressing into the data interconnection that we're doing. But Gautam, how do you see, from Secura's point of view, let's bring some reality to use cases. What use cases do you see from your point of view and what you're doing at Secura that's going to require these wholesale relationships, i.e. the reach that's actually needed in the industry, so what you do when you mash up the APIs is going to be successful?
Yeah, so, and again, we are, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking into the identity and fraud space mostly. And then the use cases are changing on a daily basis because the fraud landscape is changing, right? So, for example, let's take phishing, right? It has gone to a level where we cannot even think, right? Especially after the generative AI revolution. So earlier, when you see, when we were seeing the, this, hey dad, I lost my phone type of phishing messages, you could see the message and you will know that this is not truly coming from our own contacts, because the language was bad, spelling mistakes. Now what the fraudsters are doing is they're actually training the machine learning models, and then the phishing messages are generated from there, right? So it looks accurate, and it doesn't stop there. What we have seen is, and this is where the use case will come in, what we are seeing is these fraudsters are then training these, fine-tuning the large language models with our own content from the social media. So in that case, it is not just accurate, it looks very personal, and it doesn't stop there. What these fraudsters are doing, what we have seen is, they're actually training these large language models with viral content. And again, I was in another conference where there was a neuroscientist, and what he said is, apparently, viral contents are viral because by reading that, it increases the level of dopamine and oxytocin in our blood. I don't know how that happens, but that's what apparently is happening. So these fraudsters are fine-tuning these large language models with these viral content. So it will be accurate, it will be very targeted, and it is basically making us emotional. So then the fraud dynamics are changing at a amazing level. So here, this is one of the use cases that we are seeing, especially in Southeast Asia, where the fraud, especially because for example in India, right, in one day, this UPI, this Unified Payment Interface, they do 1 billion transactions. So the fraudsters are naturally looking into there. And the majority of the fraud is using phishing. So coming back to a reality, what APIs from Open Gateway are actually helping in there? It's simple, right? It's all the 4 identity APIs as part of Open Gateway. So SIM swap, number verify, and the SMS OTP as well, and the device status. So they are actually helping to stop these frauds, which are at a pandemic level right now.
Yeah, you'll also see very shortly IMEI sort of APIs coming through for lost and stolen phones, which is another way of identifying some of the problems. So it's really great to actually hear that one type of use case, but you can expand that sort of, well, we just talked about it in our own business of wholesale, the fraud, this phishing, this filling that's going on out there. But also, if you think about healthcare, logistics, whether it's retail, whether it's entertainment, you can actually model various different ways. And I'll just repeat, the cloud infrastructure businesses, their revenue pool is doubling over the next 7 years to 2030, from about 2.6 trillion to 5 trillion as our digital economy. 52% of GDP is now digitized. 33% goes over your networks, okay? That's 33% of the world's GDP over your networks. There is value you're going to be able to extract if we can be able to get into that. Right, for the last sort of question, and it's a quick fire question to each one of you, so you have one sentence. What's the one challenge, I'm going to go left to right just to prompt Noel, what's the one challenge that you'd like to see tackled in the next short period of time so you can get NaaS and Open Gateway to be a success?
So I can repeat here an answer we heard before. It's regulation. So regulation is blocking a lot. So it's really like, if you're talking about quality on demand, privacy data. So all of these, there are a lot of challenges, regulational units, and
one
the government.
sentence, that's two. Viktorija.
I will agree with you, no, really. And the second one, for sure, it's market reachability. So we need to have more and more operators working on the same standard as Orange and Deutsche Telecom are following, and I do hope that will happen in the near future. And this is at the end really the message. So try to do it together, because this is the only way.
I agree, and I would add that probably what we still need is really to bridge the gap to the developers community and the way developers think, the way they work, the way they have their agile approach in the everyday. This is not our DNA. Our telco DNA is slightly different and quite long-term oriented. So I think this is really how to move into this digital space, how to work progressively together and understand each other. I think this is one of the challenge to have it as a success.
Brilliant.
I would say removing the complexity of federation. When I say federation, is commercial, functional, and technical federation from the developers. Then it will succeed. That's a learning we had, and that's perfect timing. Thanks, Andy.
Round of applause for our panelists. That's how to get it spot on. From the GSMA, regulation is very important. If you look at the banking industry, they have a very pro-regulation with their environment. They work hand in hand. And I think in the telecommunication industry, and to some, we have to look in the mirror at the GSMA, because we have a very large advocacy and policy group, we could have a better pro-open gateway regulation for our industry going forward, and that's one thing we're going to be working on. Back to you, Isabella. Thank you very much.